I'm going to give you a new perspective on hypermobility that you've probably never heard before, and hopefully the exercises and information in this video will help those that are struggling with it feel more secure and stable within their bodies. Now, those that haven't know, hypermobility is no joke, and to be completely honest with you, they are almost always my most difficult and challenging clients to work with, but that doesn't mean that we can't still see great things happen and good results from doing the right interventions. Unfortunately, a lot of the advice and exercises given for hypermobility are frankly pretty pointless and not really accomplishing much. That's why so many people that have this issue, like EDS, have done a lot of different exercises and things for it, but haven't seen the results they're looking for to feel better. A lot of the methods trying to treat hypermobility revolve around stability training, doing some strength training, and also maybe aerobic exercise and some specific mobility exercises, but it's not really getting at the root cause of what's going on. So let's have a discussion. What is actually going on with people that have hypermobility? And first, it's very important to distinguish the difference between hyperflexibility and hypermobility. Hypermobility is the true problem we're talking about in this video. These are people that have been diagnosed with things like EDS. These are people that genuinely have way too much range of motion and lack of stability within their body. A really good question you can ask these people to get an idea if they actually have something like EDS or true hypermobility is, did you do party tricks for your friends growing up? Did you do weird things and contort your body in strange ways to impress or entertain your friends as a kid? That is usually associated with genuine EDS. However, you also have a lot of people that are in a different subsection, which I would refer to as hyperflexible. These are your people that have practiced yoga for decades or years on end. These are your people that have done endless amounts of stretching and flexibility routines and have from probably a relatively young age trained themselves to just have a ton of mobility. So these people get misdiagnosed as having hypermobility, but in reality, they've just trained their body into just being hyperflexible. That doesn't mean that they have a genuine diagnosis of EDS. They get lumped in with EDS people, but it's important to distinguish that these two people, while they might benefit from slightly similar approaches, are not the same thing. People with hypermobility are oftentimes known as being too loose and unstable, and there is some truth behind that. Ultimately, what's going on with hypermobility people is that they lack the ability to properly create compressive positions of their body, compressive joint actions, the ability to properly produce force without a lot of compensation. And one reason for this is because their body is essentially lost in space. They have no feeling of end ranges of what their joints should normally be able to work towards. A couple examples for me and the average person: if I were to straighten out my elbow, there's a natural stopping point. If I were to reach my arm behind myself, there's a natural stopping point. And it varies depending on the individual. But hypermobile people can go far beyond this because their joints are really lax and there's a lot of underlying physiological and biomechanical things going on there. But ultimately, they don't really have a sense of end ranges of motion. So they tend to sit and lay on the floor in awkward positions that the average person would say, I don't know how you're possibly comfortable in that position. But for them, it feels good because they're in an end range that their body can genuinely sense. And for them, that feels stable. But for the average person, it looks like it would cause a lot of pain. So what I found to be very helpful for people that have EDS and hypermobility, and even for some people that have hyperflexibility, is they need to learn how to genuinely compress their body, which will help them kind of tighten up, for lack of a better term, but it'll help them kind of sense end ranges in a more genuine way, which is ideal. We don't want them to be too loose necessarily. We want them to learn how to create meaningful compression. Let me show you what that looks like. Your pelvis can assume two main shapes. We have a pelvic floor that can descend, and I'm very much exaggerating what the SI joint and pelvis motion is just for illustrative purposes. So your pelvis can be in a descended position like this or an ascended position like this, where these bones kind of rotate inwards. The descended position, the bones would open up like this. So typically people that have hypermobility have an inability to access that compressive position of the pelvis, and that is more associated with genuine internal rotation. The way they find a lot of their movements is just to move through the low back and the spine and just move their whole pelvis as one unit without any of this going on underneath, and they're lacking those motions. So what they're effectively doing is substituting low back movement and spine movement for a lack of genuine ability to get these minor little actions of the pelvis that are meaningful for creating genuine movement from the hips down to the foot. When I say compressive joint actions, you can think of this like an exhaled position of joint actions. When we exhale, we should move into a position of compression. What should happen is our pelvic floor should ascend as these bones inwardly rotate. You're going to see other bones throughout the body inwardly rotate. So what you're going to see is the rib cage move down and in. You're going to see an exhaled position be more associated with force production. This is why we exhale when we're doing something like lifting heavy weights. So these people struggle to properly achieve a nice exhaled representation in their body, so they end up substituting and compensating and moving through places that they probably shouldn't. And then over time, this builds and creates a lot of stress at different areas in the body, depending on their compensation pattern. So if you're struggling with hypermobility and you're watching this video, the exercises I'm about to show you are going to teach you how to genuinely compress and be able to better achieve those positions genuinely of the joints, which is more of a, again, exhaled representation of your skeleton. This is going to help you better produce force in a meaningful way. Better put force into the ground when you walk or run. Put force into the ground when you're picking something off of the ground. That way you're not this loosey-goosey sort of skeleton where you look like those guys at the car dealerships that are just completely out of control. You want to be able to properly sense compression. That's what these exercises are really trying to get you to do. And this is addressing the systemic true root cause. So I'd recommend doing these exercises in this specific order that you're going to see. And then sensing how you feel when you move around. What you should notice if you do them right is that you feel more connected to the ground. You feel more stable. And exercises like this are an introduction, not a comprehensive approach necessarily, but it should give you an idea of what your body needs going forward. If this video is helping you understand hypermobility or your body in a way that you haven't considered before, it would mean a lot to me on the channel if you could like and subscribe, because I have released new videos like this every single week on all sorts of different topics. So this first position is going to get us to really compress and internally rotate our rib cage and thorax, our trunk. This is a huge component that's missing in a lot of EDS people. So what we want to do is get a pillow double folded in half. You don't have to use it, but it's just for comfort's sake. And you want to get far enough away from the wall to where you can have your whole hand flat, but you want to keep your elbows just about 10 to 15% unlocked, maybe about 20%, depending on if you have a tendency to really hyperextend your elbows. So somewhere in that 10 to 20%. So you want to feel your whole hand as flat as possible, shoulder width apart. Now, here's what you're going to do. Your sternum or your breastbone's right here. You want to keep it perfectly facing the wall. If there's a laser pointer coming out of it, you want to always face here. But what you're going to do is very gently protract your shoulders. So you're gently going to push through the wall to separate your shoulder blades away from your spine, and you're going to feel like space is opening in between your shoulder blades and spine. You're going to do this without depressing your sternum or shrugging your shoulders. So you shouldn't feel your shoulders rise up really at all. You should just feel very gentle separation. It's much less effort than you think you need. Hypermobile people really try to force themselves into compressive positions. You don't want to do that. It should be very, very gentle. If you don't remember anything that I say in this whole video when it comes to these exercises, remember this: less effort is more. So just a very gentle push, maybe about a 2 or 3 out of 10 to get a little bit of gentle separation between your shoulder blades and spine. Now here's what you're going to do. Maintain that, and you should feel a little bit of rib cage down like this, both at your sternum depressing, maybe a tiny bit of ab engagement. Now you're going to exhale very gently through your mouth for about 5 to 10 seconds, letting the air fall out of your mouth like this. As you do that, at the end of that 5 to 10 seconds, you're going to feel more side abs, not as much your six-pack, hopefully, but your side abs engage more. You're going to get a little bit of six-pack, but it should be mostly side abs. And then you're going to pause. You're going to not breathe in for about 2 to 5 seconds. And then you're going to inhale through your nose, gently not engaging your neck for about 3 to 5 seconds. So it's a 5 to 10 second exhale, pause with your mouth closed, tongue on the roof of the mouth for 2 to 5, and then inhale very gently for 3 to 5. So a whole breath looks like this. You're maintaining that slight push the entire time. Notice how I got some very subtle expansion in my back. That's what we're looking for. Again, no shrugging, and I should not hear you inhale, or you should never feel your neck engage. It should be very gentle. You're gonna do this for about 2 to 3 sets of 10 slow breaths. Now, this next one is a little bit of a progression, and we're gonna start to get a little bit of hip engagement as well. And this is gonna, again, get us to really get those compressive internally rotated actions working better together. So what we're gonna do is get about this far away from a wall, and you're gonna sit. You wanna feel your sit bones as evenly as you can on both sides. So you're not kind of like leaning too far back or arching your back. Feel your sit bones on both sides as evenly as you realistically can. And you wanna be able to keep your elbow pretty bent here. About this much is what you're looking for. And you're in a door frame, so that way, or on the edge of a wall, so that way you can reach forward with the other hand very gently. You have a foam roller in between your mid thighs, so that way we're gonna give a little squeeze, but not quite yet. So let's set up first. Again, remember that laser pointer cue, facing perfectly straight ahead. Place your hand just lower a little bit more than the height of your shoulder right here. And you're gonna very gently press into the wall, which is gonna push your rib cage back, but again, not make you slouch too much. If you do this, you're gonna feel your abs engage on the same side, your side abs on this example, the left. And then you're gonna reach with your other hand straight forward, very gently, getting a little bit of separation between your shoulder blade and spine. Again, I'm not shrugging, I'm not depressing my sternum. I'm feeling my sit bones. I'm pushing here a little bit, keeping a bent elbow, and I'm going right here. So at this point, all I should feel is my sit bones and a little bit of abs on this left side or whatever side's on the wall. Now, keeping a little bit of that push, you're gonna squeeze the foam roller about a 3 out of 10. That is it, not any more than that. And you're gonna feel your inner thighs activate, but this should not come at the cost of you losing your sit bones. So, you have a little squeeze, you're going right here. Now the breathing is the exact same. Exhale fully through your mouth for about 5 to 10 seconds, letting the air fall out of your mouth. You're gonna feel more side abs engaged on the side you're gently pushing through. You're gonna pause, close your mouth, and then not inhale for 2 to 5 seconds. And then you're going to inhale, maintaining that slight push for about 3 to 5 seconds, not engaging your neck whatsoever. So full breath looks like this. Okay, set up, sit bones, slight push, slight reach, slight squeeze. Just like that. Now this is the most dynamic one that's gonna have a whole body component of creating good compression. We're gonna ease ourselves into it. You can also adjust this depending on your own individual capabilities. So what you're gonna need is a ball, or you could take, a pretty big pillow, fold it in half. You could also use a foam roller if you have nothing else. But I like a little compressible ball like this. You're gonna place it deep up in your thighs like this, but still keeping your feet hip width apart like this. And then what you're gonna do is get a little bit more than about 1 foot length away from the wall, maybe about 1.5 foot lengths. Feet hip width apart again, and now here's the absolute key. You can't mess up this part because it's really important. You wanna feel the foot contacts of your heel, your base of the big toe, and base of the little toe. Keep your whole foot relaxed, but focus on these 3 points of contact evenly on both sides at all times. Now, you wanna keep your eyes straight ahead, and you want to make sure that your back feels mostly flat against the wall. You can have a little space in between your low back and the wall, but for the most part, you want it to be pretty neutral. And then you want to very gently just reach your elbows away from yourself, get a little bit of that protraction feeling, meaning that your shoulder blades are very gently separating away from your spine. But that's it, just a tiny bit, never at the cost of coming off the wall at all. Now here's all you're going to do. All you're going to do is exhale and go down just a couple of inches. Stop here. And then you're gonna hold this position and you're gonna inhale, give the ball a tiny little squeeze, maintaining all those foot contacts, especially those outside foot contacts, the outside little toe. You're gonna wanna collapse in, don't do that. And then hold this for a full nice inhale, not engaging your neck. Exhale again. Couple inches further down. And you still want to feel most of your back up against that wall, maybe a tiny little space between your low back and the wall, but this part of your hip is on the wall. And then you're going to inhale again. Give that ball a tiny little squeeze. And then keep going just a couple of inches down with each exhale, unsqueezing the ball before you start to move down. And this is really working on getting your foot connected to the ground. This is really working on creating that inward action, ascension of your pelvic floor, trying to get your rib cage in a nice position. This is putting all the pieces together right here. And for some people, they can get pretty low. Others, they might start to feel like their knees might get irritated and might feel in their low back at all. Don't go to that point. For some people, if all you can do is get down to right here, Start there and then progress over time. I'd recommend taking about 4 to 5 breaths to get to your end range if you can, resetting, coming back up, and doing that about 3 to 5 times. Now, not everyone will have these, but if you do happen to have something like wedges like this, I find it quite helpful to put one wedge underneath just the first 2 toes on both sides. You might have to widen out your stance just a little bit, but something like this I find really helps people feel their foot more connected to the ground, and it's also a little bit easier on the knees as they go down. So I'm a fan of adding that if you can. If not, no big deal. Just focus on keeping the right foot contacts. Thank you guys for watching. And again, if this has been helpful for you, let me know in the comments down below, because I'd be happy to make more content about hypermobility, because I know how hard it is to deal with this. I've worked with so many people that have this issue. And if you want, maybe in the future, I can even release a program centered around hypermobility and addressing it. So let me know, again, in the comments. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.